For testosterone to do its job, it needs to bind to a receptor, right? The cargo ship needs to dock and the port has to be open. If the port isn't open, the ship can't drop off the cargo. It's simple. Now, why is that important? Because if you want those traits, right? If you want that increased muscle mass, that decreased fat storage, right? If you want those increased energy levels, the increased metabolism, the stable mood, the increased libido, the masculine features, all that stuff, if you want that, you have to have a fuck ton of testosterone, but you also have a fuck ton of working androgen receptors, right? The things inside the cell which actually cause epigenetic expression, the changes in gene expression, right? Now, it just so happens that a lot of the things we do, such as, for example, working out very intensely, right? If you work out to failure, if you're there and you get off the bench and you feel like you've been hit with a fucking grenade, right? You don't know what up and down is, all that stuff, you feel dizzy. If you work out like this, right? What happens? One of the things that happens, right? Because inflammation and all that stuff, one of the things that happen is oxidative stress, right? Those are good mechanisms, inflammation, oxidative stress. In this situation, it's beneficial. These are the things that actually cause epigenetic changes. They cause the cells to adapt, right, to the environment, which makes them grow, which makes them stronger, etc., etc. In the long term, you have more muscle mass, which means you have more cells with androgen receptors, which means you have more signaling. So again, more and more and more and more of the things you want, right? What about, for example, cold exposure, right? When you expose yourself to the cold showers, cold shock therapy, nitric oxide, right? What about, for example, when you take this, right? This is arginine and citrulline, a couple of milligrams, whatever. We do this, for example, we take it on an empty stomach because we get a growth hormone boost from that. This increases your nitric oxide. Now, nitric oxide, again, it's a good thing. It causes vasodilation, right? It causes the veins to be bigger, which means there's less blood pressure, which means there's more nutrients that are flowing to the muscles, more nutrients flowing to the nuts, right? Where your testosterone is produced, more nutrients flowing to organs, all that stuff, more nutrients flowing to the brain, more blood flow, right? Great. Another thing it does is it makes your dick bigger. Do you know what I mean? It increases the erection. Try it out 30 minutes before. Fucking hell. They're going to be like, what the fuck? I never knew I had these facilities. You know what I mean? But the problem with these two things is that what they do is they to some extent, it's not like it's radical, but they will close off the androgen receptor, right? To some extent, close off, right? You can say disable. Fuck, again, I can't fucking write. Disable the androgen receptor, right? And again, the analogy I always used, that's the port. Your testosterone is your DHT, dihydrotestosterone, your testosterone. Those are your ships, your cargo ships. They have to dock in order to leave the cargo, right? If they close off the ports, if they disable the ports, if they make it inactive, it's wasted. Like the testosterone can't do shit when it enters. And it just so happens that these things, they turn it off. Now, this is where we reach the protagonist of the video, namely our heat shock protein, right? HSP. Now, what our heat shock protein does is it enters into the cell and it activates those androgen receptors back. It makes them, bioactive, bioavailable, whatever the fuck you want to call it. They work. The port is back on, right? There's like lights and stuff. They're inviting the ship, the lantern with the fucking thing that's turning to telling the ship like, okay, come here, doc. This is what that shit does, heat shock protein. Tremendous, right? Tremendous. Now, how do we increase this? When is this released? Now, this is called a heat shock protein. So if you're thinking, yeah, it probably is released when there's heat, you're right, exactly. So this is released, let's say released predominantly predominantly with heat exposure. This also is released when, for example, you're doing workouts, right? Oxidative stress, resistance training, when you're doing like intense cardio, high intensity cardio, when you're doing cold exposure, right? Because it's thermal regulation. But predominantly the biggest peak happens when there's heat, right? Released predominantly after, right? After, during, it peaks after, right? But after heat exposure. Oh, perfect. Now, how do we actually expose ourselves to heat? What's the best way? Sauna, right? Sauna. Now, when you go to the sauna and you do, 15, 20 minutes, a couple times, even once, this is where those molecules are released. They peak 1 to 2 hours after the sauna, right? But this is where you get the most increase. Not only does the sauna have, boost to your growth hormone when you're doing it fasted. Not only do they have a boost on detoxifying yourself from heavy metals, from estrogenics, right? You're literally sweating away estrogenics, toxins, microplastics. Bro, you're getting rid of it during the sauna. Not only are you getting a growth hormone boost, but you're also getting a heat shock protein boost. This is when they're released, right? Now, another thing that happens is when you're fasted, when you're doing that sauna fasted, the best one is between 24 and like sauna and 48 hours, right? Between 24 and 48 hours. This is when these heat shock proteins are released most, because this is where autophagy is present, right? Autophagy, which is basically the cells that are the recycling of proteins and all that stuff. Perfect. So easily you can say, yeah, okay, let's do the sauna. Let's do the sauna fasted. Let's do, for example, the best protocol. I think, if you've never done sauna, or if you do sauna, and if you have access to a sauna, right? If you don't have access to a sauna, rethink if it makes sense to go to that gym. Maybe find a gym that has a sauna. If you're like in one of these like gyms where there's like a shit ton of steroid guys, like big with tattoos and stuff, and there's like no chicks, it's like this underground, old iron, and you think that's tremendous, fair enough. Like if you like that shit, good. But what I'd say to you is reconsider it, because when you go to like even a more pussy gym, like a more sort of, where everybody goes and stuff, bro, there's a lot of benefits to that, other than the sauna. But number one, you're probably going to be bigger than a lot of people, which is going to give you a nice sort of fucking ego boost, testosterone boost. If you go there at 3 or 2, 3, 4 in the afternoon, where, the high level guys haven't gone in yet, the fucking big ones who've worked out for 12 years, you're going to be the biggest guy. There's going to be chicks, they're going to be looking at you. Who the fuck knows? Maybe you'll end up speaking to one of them, or one of them will end up following you on Instagram and you'll be banging her, right? Who knows? So there are some pros to doing that. And obviously one of them is it has a sauna. When you have access to the sauna and you work out, let's say 3 times a week, the best protocol, in my opinion, fuck all the studies that say like 2 hours in the sauna every day, 16-fold increase. The best protocol is this. If you haven't done sauna, if you haven't tried it, just fucking turn off your brain and try it for like a couple months. Monday, gym, Tuesday, sauna, Wednesday, gym, Thursday, sauna, Friday, gym, Saturday, sauna. 3 times, tremendous, right? These like heat shock protein boosts, they last for like 24 to 48 hours, right? They peak after 1 to 2 hours, but they last then. Tremendous. So we're going to do our sauna fasted, if possible. I think you should also work out fasted. And also there's another benefit, by the way, right? If we've already, basically the video's done, right? Like heat shock protein, sauna, just go do the sauna, right? 15 to 20 minutes and happy face, you have heat shock proteins, and your androgen receptors are not closed off, they're on again. Now let's talk about some fucking anecdotal experience, right? I don't know about you, but I've scoured research. Like I became one of these like skinny necks with like fucking eye goggles and like the shirts tied on the neck, right? And I like started researching papers and stuff because I wanted to find out, is there actually so does it happen that when you break a fast, your testosterone increases, right? I wanted to make sure if that's true. And actually it isn't. So in the research, There is no correlation between breaking a fast and getting a testosterone increase. But bro, I'll tell you from my personal experience, when I fast for like 20 hours, whatever, and I fucking eat a big ass meal with eggs, you know, what I always say, the first meal, there is no plants other than fruits. There is no, I don't know, like stupidity like grains and gluten and fucking legumes and leafy greens and you know, and nuts and all this, you know, these things that have a shit ton of anti-nutrients. Bro, I eat that fucking big ass meal, whatever, and like 15 to 30 minutes after that, I'm horny as a fucking motherfucker. Do you know what I mean? Like, I literally fantasize about being like 10,000 years BC so I could like go out and like pillage. You know what I mean? For real. Now, if you combine that effect with the heat shock proteins of the sauna and stuff, like fucking hell, it works, right? Like, I don't give a fuck about studies and all that stuff and blood levels. Bro, if I feel like I've got more testosterone, I probably do. Do you know what I mean? Like, come on. Like, let's acknowledge my personal experience for a second. So if you really combine this shit, if you go fasted, if you come back, you eat your big ass meal, you take all your supplements, all your zincs, all your, you know, seleniums, your borons, your vitamin Ds, and they, you know, slowly but surely they get incorporated, right? The absorption is greatest, the efficiency, the speed is greatest, right? It gets in the bloodstream, it gets in the, you know, enzymes start producing, boom, it's tremendous. Where sauna, where the heat shock proteins, they peak 1 to 2 hours after the sauna, this is like a marriage made in heaven, do you know what I mean? Like, you have a shit ton of androgen receptors available, you have a shit ton of those, you know, things that produce testosterone and stuff, probably more testosterone as well. And this is where the effect is the greatest. It's like the ultimate biohacking. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I think I've said it all, right? Heat shock proteins. We do the things which actually disable androgen receptors. This is one way that, well, this is the way that they can actually be turned on, right? With heat shock proteins. They're released predominantly after heat exposure. Sauna, 15 to 20 minutes. One is kind of like, come on. If you're in there, you might as well do two sessions, right? But, you know, 20 minutes, maybe twice, 15, 3 times these things every second day to get the benefit. Plus, there's obviously the benefit of detoxificating your body, getting rid of microplastics. The growth hormone increase when you're doing it fasted, right? Growth hormone is released when insulin is low because they have their, you know, functional antagonism and these things. So yeah, sauna, heat shock proteins, tremendous, done. Anyways, so the dopamine addicts are gone, so I'm talking directly to the killers. First of all, subscribe to the fucking channel. Like, if you haven't done so already, this is the type of value you get, right? This isn't some like fucking ChatGPT advice. Do you know what I mean? I've been doing this shit for years. I looked like this when I was 17. Now I have 1,500 nanograms per deciliter. You know, if you want caveman levels, you go to the one who actually achieved it with shit genetics, which is me. You know, I spent years doing these things, implementing these protocols. And that being said, if you want to, you know, use my expertise more on an individual basis, if you want to take your process on steroids, if this shit resonates, there's a link below. This is my calendar. You book 30 minutes with me. We talk, we get to know each other. I ask you some questions. Let's see what you're struggling with. You know, obviously I talk more about the biochemistry, but, you know, because biochemistry drives behavior, this is kind of like the law of the channel. But truth be told, bro, like if you're struggling with spiritual stuff, psychological stuff, like I've been through it all, right? It took me, I don't know how many, 22 years, 23 years to become a normal person, normal functioning human being without like debilitating fucking mental health problems that I wanted to kill myself every day. Do you know what I mean? So let's say that, you know, I've been through the shit, so now I can help you get out of the shit. So yeah, I'm not gonna say more. So if that interests you, you have the link below. If not, fair enough, you can just continue watching this because these are bangers. But like, subscribe so you actually get informed when they release. And tell your mates as well. If you have mates that like, they want to increase testosterone and they want to be more masculine and shit, like, bro, send them this. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, until next time, bro. I'll see you later.